Problem number 9 from the Chapter 3 closure packet states, simplify each expression. So starting out here, we've got letter A. We have x to the 7th times y to the negative 1st times y to the 3rd. In this case, remember when we are multiplying two numbers with the same base, we end up adding the exponents. Since there's nothing being multiplied for x, we'll just leave that as x to the 7th. And then we've got y to the negative 1st plus 3 is going to end up being 2. So we get x to the 7th, y to the 2nd. And that is our answer. The second one, we have 3x squared, and then we're raising it to the 3rd power. So this is where we're raising a power to a power. Our base, right now, what we're looking at is 3x squared. And then our power is 3. We can take it and expand it. We could say that this means the same thing as 3 times x squared times 3 times x squared times 3 times x squared. And because multiplication is commutative, we can think of this as 3 times 3 times 3 times x squared times x squared times x squared. And when we put that all together, this should be 27x to the 6th power. Letter C. 6y to the 5th over 18xy to the 8th. I'm going to break this into 3 smaller problems and then put it all back together. So I have 6/18. I only have an x on the bottom, so I'm going to write times 1 over x. And then I have a y to the 5th on the top and a y to the 8th on the bottom. Now we just simplify them. 6/18. Well, 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 18, right? 2 goes into what? 9 times if you want to go that route, but it still could simplify more, right? 3 goes into 3 once, and then 3 goes into 9 3 times. So 6/18 is the same thing as 1/3. Okay, our 1 over x isn't going to change, but our y to the 5th over y to the 8th, thinking about it, it's like y times y times y times y times y over 8 of them. Right, in which case you could cancel out 5 of them and you're still left with 3 on the bottom. So we'll say this is like 1 over y to the 3rd. Now to write out our answer, we're just going to multiply these 3 parts together, multiply these 3 parts together. The final answer we should end up with would be 1 over 3x y to the 3rd. All right, I have to erase part of that one to do that next one. So we have 20 x to the 7th, y to the 5th, over 5x squared, y to the 8th. Again, let's just break it into compatible parts. 20 over 5 times x to the 7th over x squared times y to the 5th over y to the 8th. 20 divided by 5 is 4. When we look to cancel out between our x to the 7th and x squared, 2 of them will end up canceling, right? So this would knock us down to x to the 5th. And then on the last one, right, it looks like we've got more exponents in the denominator than we do in the numerator. So if we were to cancel them out like we did before, 5 from up here would cancel with 5 on the bottom, and this leftover 3 would be down on the bottom. So that would be like saying times 1 over y to the 3rd. Now we put it all together, we get 4x to the 5th over y to the 3rd. And that is our answer. Let's move on to letter E. So for E, we've got 2x to the 4th and then raised to the 3rd power. Again, you can apply the properties if you want to, or you can just think about this is 2x to the 4th times 2x to the fourth times 2x to the fourth, or 2 times 2 times 2 times x to the fourth times x to the fourth times x to the fourth. That'll give you 8x to the 12th power. Letter F. 34x to the 12th y to the third over 17x to the third y. All right, so getting started, let's just break it apart. It's 34 over 17 times x to the 12th over x to the third times y to the third over y. This is going to simplify to 2. This is x to the 9th. And our last term should be y squared. Letter G. 4x squared times 6x to the 8th. So remember, it's 4 times x squared times 6 times x to the 8th. If we rearrange it, we've got 4 times 6 times x squared times x to the 8th. 4 times 6 is 24, and x squared times x to the 8th is going to be x to the 2 plus 8 would be 10th. And last but not least, let's look at letter H. So we've got 3 times x to the 6th and 5 times x to the negative third. So 3 times x to the 6th times 5x to the negative third. So 3 times 5 times x to the 6th times x to the negative third. That's going to give us 15x to the third power.